Good morning and welcome to the weekly multi-platform service of Tri-County Unitarian Universalists based in Summerfield, Florida. We acknowledge that we occupy the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the indigenous Florida peoples. I'm Helen Kirschbaum, today's service leader. Hello to our members and friends, and a special welcome to those who might be visiting here for the first time. Unitarian Universalists are united not by a creed of shared beliefs, but by a covenant of shared values. We celebrate that we do not need to think alike to love alike. It's our respect and encouragement of each other's diversity of thought that truly binds us together. For the curious and for the seekers, Unitarian Universalist values and covenant may be found on your order of service and at our website, triuu.org. Our newsletter can also be found there under news and events. We have announcements, but first, please mute your phone or place it in airplane mode. Thank you. If you're here today looking for our minister, the Reverend Christina is on vacation and will be back at the pulpit on August 2nd. Today's service is going to be a bit different than usual. Instead of having just one speaker or minister, we'll have 3 members of our congregation share a part of their life with us. At the end of the service, not each speaker, but at the end of the service, you'll be able to make remarks or ask any of them questions. This concludes our announcements, and as we now begin the service proper, we'll recite the mission statement. Please join with your voice as we recite together. We unite in religious community to seek spiritual growth, live with integrity, and serve with compassion. Our chalice keeper today is Brenda Nelson. We invite those of you joining us on Zoom to light your chalice at home.
Good morning. A friend is someone who knows all about you and still loves you. Albert Hubbard.
Our invitation to centering is by the Reverend Ian W. Riddell. Come, come, whoever you are. Do you hear that voice calling you, calling us? That voice which calls us together here today in this room, made holy by our presence and by the sacred breath we share in our singing and speaking and silence. That voice which calls us to remember that we are not alone and that we are inextricably linked to all other life, woven into a vast tapestry of existence, of which we are a powerful, integral, and holy part. And just as we've been called together here today, we act as the voice, the heart, the hands of another call. The call to walk with the wanderers, sing and dance with the worshipers, proclaim the memory of those who have taken their leave, wrap the despairing and the broken in the arms of love and community, and hold the hands of all of us who have broken our vows and call us back again and again to the covenant and work of justice, humility, and steadfast faithfulness. For this we are here today together. So my friends, come yet again, come, let us worship together. Please stand as you're willing and able as we sing hymn 361. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Rejoice and come in. Enter, rejoice and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Helen Dohn has identified with creative arts since she was 21 years old. And there goes my screen. There we go. As a college senior, she used 2 electives to immerse herself in pottery classes. Since then, clay has remained a part of her creative life and also a useful tool in her career as a licensed social worker. After retiring, Helen was introduced to pine needle basket coiling. It is a combination of these 2 passions that has been reflected in her craft creations for the past 14 years.
Good morning. Morning. Thanks, Eileen. That introductory reading couldn't have been more on target for what I'd like to share today. I found also that the timer works when you have it on airplane mode, so I'm going to put that on. Just 1 second. Okay. I'd like to talk today about weaving the image of a basket together, and it's basically the image of part of my life. The themes that came to me last night, I was thinking about this presentation, were that there are gifts, there's grief, and there's gratitude. And that's what I hope to weave for you today. When I was 21, as Helen mentioned, I took classes that were electives. I had all the important requirements done, and there was time to play and be a little frivolous. And I think that's part of the message today as well. I took 2 pottery classes, and my instructor was a guy named Bill Clock. When I walked into these rooms years later, having already joined a fellowship way up in the countryside, followed a professor out into the night, having no idea where I was going. That's what brought me to UU. I walked in these rooms and I found Mary Ann and Mike Donato. They had been members at that previous congregation years before, and her best friend, was Bill Clock's wife. So I had an opportunity to write a letter to Bill and thank him for the effect that pottery had had throughout my life. And then years later, after he passed, Mary Ann arranged for a little luncheon between the 3 of us, which was lovely, his wife and Mary Ann and I. So those are some of the weavings as they began. There's a raffia basket in the very center. That piece started its basketry journey, not the pottery one so much. The piece of pottery next to it is actually about 50, 60 years old. It was one of the first pieces that I threw that I was able to bring the walls up. Terrible foot on it, but I learned from it, and that's what I tell basketry folks now. They talk about baskets being, your first one being a magic basket. I've never known why they say that, but I've come up with my own decision about it, because after you've made many, and I've made 500 or more now, you realize that first basket, that first pot, that first anything gives you a point of reference, gives you something to look at and say, whoa, what magic, what miracle there is in how I've progressed. Every time I teach a student, and there have been 67 so far, it's clumsy, it's awkward, it's uncomfortable in all different degrees. And that's how it is every time we try something new. But for me, the gift has been that a friend gave me that basket about 20 years ago when I came to Florida with Larry, kicking and screaming. That was one of the things I wanted to learn to do. So a friend taught me. I went back to New York. We were going back and forth in those days. Promptly forgot everything she had told me. And she came back, sat at my kitchen counter, taught me again. And then the muscle memory kicks in, and that magic starts to happen. So many of these baskets tell a little story. You know I'm big on story. I'm one of the people who used to do the big book with bios about many of you. And I like the baskets to tell a story as well. So that's some of the gift. Another gift from history was that as I went through my mom's things after her death, she had saved one of my pottery vases that I'd made in high school that was put in a little store window. You know, no big deal, but to her, it must have been special. I didn't save that vase, but I saved the memory of it being among her things. And then years later, there was another gift of a crocheted bedspread that my grandmother had made, my grandma Sarah, and I still have that. And it was one of those things, as people were dividing things up, it went to someone else in the family. And then they called and said, would you like this back? Would you like to have this? And I said, yeah, because I like looking at it. I don't keep things around that aren't having some joy. Larry's very quick to tell people who come to visit to take a basket home with them. And yesterday, it's true, when I finished a piece, it was a clay piece that had one of Grandma's doilies pressed in it. And I said, should I keep this, or sell it? I was at Villages Art League show yesterday, and Larry was like, sell it. And this is not bread on our tables. This is just decluttering, according to Larry. So those are some of the gifts that have come along. A gift in that, as I was busy as a young mother and as a social worker in a middle school, those of you who've worked in a school, you either love them or hate them at that age, and I loved them. But I was able to use my pottery, didn't have basketry at the time, in art therapy and play therapy with children that were 10 to 14 or so. And that was a gift. But as I said, when we came down here, the one thing I wanted to be able to do was learn this art. What I learned in retirement too, though, is that life keeps changing. So some of those themes that came up earlier, when I was a master gardener in New York, I went from having a 50 by 50, kind of a small farm, when I stayed at home with the kids and you'd be canning and freezing, and to some pots with some flowers, life changes. With the pottery, I can't pick up a 25-pound bag of clay anymore and haul it into the studio. So smaller pieces. I broke my wrist playing pickleball. Good things come from everything. I wrapped that cast in plastic and I started making the bases to these baskets. And the rest is history. So lots of other basketry people like them and use my bases as well. Other things, loss and grief. When my brother passed, I could not do any art. I couldn't do my clay. I couldn't do the baskets. I couldn't even concentrate on reading. I started using the Artist's Way, which has a workbook and a book that goes with it. And it's basically pencil to paper and just keep writing, train of thought. And I was able, within a month or so, to feel that spark coming back and wanting to create some new things. Larry and I were down in Key West recently. We walked into a butterfly museum, and one of them lit on his head, on his hat, and another was on my back the whole time we were in there. It's kind of unheard of. And that inspired the butterfly basket that's at the base, because I just kept thinking about my brother the whole time that I was there. So it's kind of my brother's butterfly basket. I tell students when they're starting with me that, yes, it feels awkward at the beginning, but wait for the basket to talk to you. And then, of course, they kid me about that one because I'm a little off, but they get more creative by it. I could teach with a little template and everybody made the same basket, but I've never done it that way. I really feel like people need to be able to express themselves. So they choose from among about 100 bases. They choose what colors they like, what textures they like. I use primarily Florida longleaf pines, which are the leaf of the pine tree, freshly fallen pines. They're not the stuff you see under the bushes. And hold on a second. Oh. And I gather them myself. I sterilize them. I bake them in glycerin, which helps to preserve them. And I have had students come to me with baskets that they didn't even know were pine needle coiling, like a grandmother's tray that someone found in an attic, and it was still in great shape and beautiful. So I'm hoping that somewhere in the future, these things find their way into people's homes or hearts, but it's really not about the stuff, It's about the memories they create, and it's about the things that bring us joy. So in summarizing, for me, I found links in my life between the gifts that started some of this, the gift of talent, like my grandma's, and ways to get through grief, because it comes in all different levels, whether it's in retirement and you're looking for new things to do or ways to use your energy, and gratitude every day. Particularly grateful for Larry, who puts up with tremendous stuff like things drying across the kitchen counter and the bathtub full of pine needles, that kind of stuff. The one thing I drew the line at, I was thinking about dyeing pine needles because there's a need for that and a lot of people would like it. And I thought, nope, that would be grounds for divorce. So, so with that thought, I hope you've enjoyed seeing some of the pictures. That picture of me at the wheel was a chalice I made. My grandchildren thought they made great helmets. Those are the Easter baskets I made for them. But I really appreciate your time and listening, and I hope you'll have other questions that you can share later. Thanks.
Thank you, Helen. As we move deeper into our service, let us turn inward to consider transitions, the joys, sorrows, and concerns we all experience in our life's journey. Please keep in your hearts Bruce Andrews, who's in the hospital and getting dialysis. There are 3 bowls of stones of different colors, representing the gratitude of joy, the grief of sorrow, and the hope of concern. After those present have placed stones in the water, our ushers will place stones from each of the bowls into the water on behalf of those not physically present and those who have chosen not to or who are unable to come forward. Those online are invited to type into the chat to express what's in your heart. When all the stones have been mingled in the water and all have shared, we'll take a moment for silent meditation or prayer. As the sound of the bells brings us back into community, we'll sing our response, voice still and small. Ushers, you may now come forward. Let us take a moment to reflect upon our own joys, concerns, and sorrows, and those of others. We will now receive our offering. If you're visiting us for the first time, please do not feel obligated to give. You are our guest, and we're happy to have you here with us today. This is a time in our service when those who wish to make some monetary contribution to our congregation's vision and mission give to support this community and its outreach. I invite the ushers to come forward. Thank you. Tim McCusker and his wife Ann moved to the Villages in August 2016 from Newark, New York, a small village located on the Erie, now known as Barge Canal. They joined TriUU in 2017. Tim has been interested in music since childhood, and as he might demonstrate, his words, not mine, is a better vocalist than an instrumentalist.
Okay, so Eileen sent me an email 2 months ago and said, wouldn't I like to be on show and tell at TriUU? And I said, what is show and tell? And she said, come on, this has been a custom here for the last several years. And I say, okay, I remember Tom talking about his painting and showing us several of his works. So that was good. But Eileen then tried to encourage me by saying that, well, we were just on a cruise and we saw a lawyer who told a bunch of funny stories. And I've been a lawyer, I retired, I'm retired, but I practiced for 40 years, and over 40 years, I cannot remember one single funny story. However, out of those 40, I was a town justice for 4 years. A town justice, in case you don't know, is a lower level court justice in New York. And so I have to ask this question, has anybody here been married by a justice of the peace? Okay, so a town justice has the power to perform weddings. When I started in 1981, you were not allowed to be paid for this service. So in fact, a lot of town justices that I knew would say, you want to get married? I'll be happy to marry you right after I do all the traffic arraignments in my court. Because then I'm not put out, you're not put out, we'll do it. That always seemed so unsympathetic to me. And so this guy came to me and said, I want to get married. Would you marry my wife and I? And I said, sure. And he said, I'd like to do it kind of close to the Rose Diner because that's where we want to have our reception. Now, we lived in this Victorian house, 4 stories, had 2 stained windows, and we were right around the corner from the Rose Diner. The Rose Diner has a bar and 10 stools and 2 tables. So I was flabbergasted that the guy wanted to get married and have his reception there. But I said, sure. So I performed his wedding ceremony, and he hopefully has had a nice life. My other story is town justices also in New York, when I was performing the role, had the power to hear small claims. Now, small claims were issues tried between 2 people civilly. They're based on civil, not criminal actions. You don't have to have an attorney to represent you in small claims court. The monetary jurisdiction for small claims court was a maximum of $3,000. So you could dispute anything you wanted to by going to the clerk and say, I have this dispute with this person. I don't expect to get any more damages than $3,000. So I was a small claims court, a small claims justice. I hated it because you have to be able to tell who's lying. I mean, everything else, arraigning a DWI defendant, that's easy because the cop says, hey, this guy was driving while he was intoxicated. Are we going to let him get out on bail, or is he going to be able to spend a night in the nice confines of the Newark jail? But in small claims, people come to you and they say something, and the people on the other side say something which is 180 degrees different, and somehow I'm expected to know which one of these people is telling the absolute truth. And I hated that part of it. But the thing that I remember that I need to tell you is, in addition to the Rose Diner in Newark, there's a VFW, and the VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars, has a bar, and it's located on the canal, so it's kind of popular. And a gentleman came to court and said, I'm suing this woman for $25. And I said, okay, can you explain what this is all about? And he said, well, we were both in the VFW at the bar, and I saw this woman down at the end of the bar, and I was looking at, she was fairly attractive. And so I bought her a drink. And she came over and sat next to me, and I bought her another drink. And ultimately, I was hoping that we would be friends. We would be friends. And after I bought her her 3rd drink, she left. So I expect her to pay me the $25 that I invested in this relationship. I forgot to ask, does anybody know any lawyer jokes, or how many there are? There's only one. The rest are true stories. Anyway, so this is what I thought after I talked to Eileen for a while. Then I said, okay, I'll play something on the ukulele. When I was a kid, a little kid, I took cornet lessons in elementary school, and in 4th grade, we had show and tell, and I had my cornet, and in my classroom, 30 kids in a room half this size, right in front of me, no mutes. I play A Mighty Fortress Is Our God. I don't know if you've heard that song before on a cornet, but it was absolutely awful. So I have nowhere to go but up. Anyway, now the good part. You folks know Frank Kelly, our drummer. We love Frank Kelly. Frank, in addition to playing our drum, and Maria have established Melodies in Mind, which is a dementia-friendly chorus. And Ann and I are in Melodies in Mind, and last year was our first concert, and we practiced and practiced. Before the concert, though, Frank, in addition to that, is in the Village Pops Orchestra, where he plays percussion. And we got tickets to see the Village Pops Orchestra. And before we got there, Frank had said, you have to listen very carefully to this tune, Danza Number 2 by Arturo Marquez. It's absolutely wonderful. And we did. And Anne recognized it as having been played on Mozart in the Jungle in the second season. But Frank said we enjoyed it. Afterwards, Frank said, I'm going to send you a link to Alondra de la Pera conducting this song. And I said, great. And he did. And Alondra de la Pera is this wonderful French conductor who, I don't know if you've seen this, but Nancy promises that you're going to get the link for this thing this afternoon. And I hope you all watch it, because if you do, you will laugh and cry at how beautiful it is. She just puts her whole self into this song, and the song is gorgeous, and I hope I don't murder it, but if you get, it's on YouTube, it's only 12 minutes long, it's absolutely gorgeous. And when I first got the link, I drove my darling wife crazy watching it, because I'd watch it over and over and over again. But it is beautiful, and I encourage you to watch it. So I also got some sheet music for a bit of it, the clarinet part, but I don't play clarinet, so I'm going to play a little bit on the ukulele, I hope. What, I'm out of time? Okay. Thank you.
Eileen, McCabe, and Tom Murphy lived in China during the 1990s, but Eileen's connection to China began even earlier. She first visited in the 1980s when China had recently opened its doors to foreign visitors. Eileen will share their experiences of living in and exploring China during a remarkable period of transformation, offering personal experiences into a country undergoing extraordinary social, cultural, and economic change.
Well, before I begin, Tim told me he didn't have anything funny to share about his lawyering. And weren't we entertained? And it was funny. He said, I'd rather talk about my ukulele. Well, it seems the theme is hidden talents. And Helen, with her wonderful crafts and her artistry since she was 21. And then we have Tim talking about his lawyering and his ukulele. And then there's me. I don't knit, I don't crochet, I don't play an instrument, I don't quilt. My claim to fame is my feet. I'm not going to show them to you. My feet took me and us to every continent there is and many, many countries. But I went by myself with a group in the 80s, which was both fascinating and intimidating. When we got off the plane, okay, never mind. When we got off the plane, we landed outside, of course, in a minimal airstrip, and we went into this building that looked like a Quonset hut. And when we went in there, there were soldiers with their rifles. And it was very, very intimidating. You got the sense that you needed to stand up straight and not smile and not ask any questions. We're not going to do any, okay, never mind. So it was fascinating. I used the word fascinating and intimidating. It was fascinating to see people that never smiled. They all wore gray, black, or brown tops and bottoms with those cone hats. Thousands and thousands of bicycles. Very solemn, very stoic faces. I once saw an accident. A man collided with another bicycle, and he fell over, and his eggs went everywhere, and his produce went everywhere, and nobody did anything. That's the way they live their lives. And I went over to help the man, and I said, we need to help this man. No one had any interest in it or any empathy. I see it as they were in a survival mode. I have to check, bicycles everywhere. And then there were soldiers everywhere. We were told where we could go and where we could not go. And I saw school, and being a teacher, I wanted to go and look at the children that were in the playground with their teacher. When they saw me, they froze. And then there was a soldier that came, and with his rifle, just let me know that I wasn't supposed to be there. There were what they called citizen stores. They were only for us. We had to exchange our money for a certain money that could be spent in those two department stores. The people did not have any money to buy anything in those stores, but I can remember buying things, and they were just so curious, I could barely take my money out. And imagine, I think it's like Martians coming down and seeing us, what it must be like. And we were just so different to these people. The food was really good. I liked it. But again, our tour director told us, eat this, you can't eat that. And we could only go to certain restaurants. That's how controlled it was. When we were in Beijing, we went to a beautiful Sheraton hotel. It was relatively new. And they, assuming we would like to have Western food, gave us, I remember, roast beef and mashed potatoes, and none of us liked it. They really didn't know how to prepare it. And we were also spoiled because we had been introduced to so many Asian foods. One of the highlights when I was there the first time was going to Xi'an and seeing the terracotta soldiers. And they had a makeshift boardwalk. So they had planks, 2 planks, and you would walk on these planks and hold onto ropes. That's how precarious it was. And you could see them down working on the excavation. You could see pots of clay and pieces of the soldiers. That was one of my most memorable. Let me see. I also talked to being closely watched. You have to watch the time. I'm trying to put in everything. So we left, and as I said, it was both fascinating and intimidating. Being a very different world, very sterile. Nobody smiled. And I was glad that I had experienced that, but I was also glad to leave. Now, the second trip, I went on as an exchange teacher, and Tom was with me, and that was in the 90s. And the difference between the 80s and the 90s was transformative. One of the things that we noticed was the buildings that were going on. In our apartment, from our window, we saw a building being taken down piece by piece, brick by brick. The men were as thin as my pinkies. They had on what I call diapers. They were sort of like these men's underwears, and they had flip-flops on. And when they moved these pieces, there would be a man in the front and a man in the back, and they would go in sync with these boards that they were moving. I remember going to the market and seeing a humongous piece of tofu. I mean, I couldn't even do, it's bigger than this. And when you wanted the tofu, you went in and you just told them what you wanted. The produce was just wonderful. We did eat on the street, I have to tell you that. And we had a corner, a man that had a table, and he had a huge fry pan, I guess you could say. And he took these eggs and he rolled them up, and we just loved it, and that was Mickey D's. So we called that Mickey D's, and we'd say, well, let's go to Mickey D's for breakfast. They were very primitive still at that time in terms of repairing things. Our toilet was broken, so they came in and they took fish line, and they somehow used fish line to jerry-rig this toilet so that it did work. Then they painted our apartment. They took a broom and wrapped rags around it, and that's how they painted. We loved our students. I was in a private school, and these were children that had learned English at a very early age, so they were proficient. They were not, however, critical thinkers. They boarded there. Their dormitory rooms it reminded me of a prison. And they went home on weekends. Many limousines came and picked the children up to go back to their homes for the weekend. Every meal they went to the cafeteria. Each student had a bowl and a spoon. And when they were done eating, they would take that bowl and spoon and put it in a locker. Just rinse it with cold water and put it in a locker. I just can't imagine what it looked like after a few days. So I was teaching English to these students, and when I tried to challenge them and say, what do you want to do when you get older? One boy said, I'll be an NBA basketball player. Another one said an engineer. Another one said a singer. But when you said to them, what if you can't? What if this doesn't happen? oh, it will happen, I will be. So they were so programmed like robots to think just one way. They never had the chance to think outside the box and think about what else they could do. So there I was, they gave me a bicycle for transportation, a rickety old thing, and then Tom came with me, he wanted to do some painting. And they called them into a meeting and said, you will teach English. And he said, I'm not a teacher, I want to do my painting. Well, the final statement was, you will teach. So I did help him with his lessons. He taught employers of banks that were going to be communicated and needed the knowledge of speaking English. Now, he had a chauffeur and he had a limousine that picked him up every day, took him to work, and took him home while I was on my rickety bicycle. And they absolutely adored and loved him. Not that they didn't me, but there was certainly a difference. The other thing I have to tell you about teachers, when I would go to erase the board, they would jump, we're out of time. They would jump up and they would erase the board. You know, teachers were so revered. That was one of the things when I came back, I thought, oh, I wish I were revered the way I was back then. Okay, well, I have to end it up here by saying our third trip, we were invited to go back and teach summer school. We went to this very small town. To this day, I don't know why, but we ended up in jail. And the man that took us there, Shawang, did all the conversing with the man that was, I suppose you would call him the keeper of the prisoners. And we finally, after a full day, were let go. When we got back to Hangzhou, where we were living, one of the, what would you call her? She was head of the party, and she came to us because our pictures and the story was in the paper. And she came to us and she said, you cannot do that. You know, you could have really been in trouble. But the interesting thing I want to say is that when we spent a lot of time with young people, 20s, 30s, they had no interest, no fear about politics. When you tell them what would happen, they would, oh, don't worry, just dismiss it. So I didn't get to say everything I wanted to say, no surprise, but I do have just a few slides to show you. That's Tom and another friend of ours who is now deceased, and I'm in the middle, and that's when we were at summer school, English summer school. This is Westlake, a very, very famous lake throughout China. And there were the lily pads, and there were the men on the rowboats, and the people would get the lily pads from them. These are two. The top one is where our dearest friend, who organized all the teachers' trips, Shawang, this was his family. The one on the bottom, I believe, is the Great Wall, which I did climb. Oh, on the top is Tom's picture. He did paint, and he did have an art show, and all of his students showed up, and that is one of his paintings. And you'll notice the sign, the Coca-Cola sign, flowers, flowers everywhere at the shop. The fan, I call them the fan ladies. Besides seeing Tai Chi everywhere, you saw these women that did this in formation, very organized dance with flags. The bottom is me with a teacher, and that is snow, which is very unusual in Hangzhou. Okay. Every time we travel and go to a different country, we would say, could we live here? And the max was we'd say, maybe a month or two. Now I know, they were going through that transformation that was very modern and very positive. I feel personally our country is going through a major transformation now, but not positive as it was then. So I ended this with, no matter where we go, what our experiences have been, this is the most wonderful country in the world.
Please stand and join us for our closing hymn, number 311, Let It Be a Dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Feel free to move, learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need to reap the harvest with the seed. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Everybody turn and spin. Let your body learn to bend. And like a willow with the wind, let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. A child is born, the old must lie. A time for joy, a time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Morning sun comes out at night. Without the dark there is no light. If nothing's wrong, then nothing's right. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let the sunshine, let it rain. Share the laughter, bear the pain. And round we go again. Let it be a dance. Brenda Nelson will now read our chalice extinguishing message.
I selected two quotes for this end of service. One was rather highbrow and one was everyday common quote. But because Eileen spoke about limousine, I thought this was very appropriate. Lots of people want to ride with you in the limo, but what you want is someone who will take the bus with you when the limo breaks down. Oprah Winfrey.
I invite anyone who's just begun to visit with us and who wishes to do so to introduce themselves, please raise your hand and an usher will bring a microphone to you. Please speak directly into the top of the microphone so we can hear you better. Anybody, this is their first time or second time, want to introduce themselves? Okay. If you'd like to receive regular communications on upcoming TriUU events, please fill out a guest card, which will be available at the door after the service. On August 11th, there will be a class for those wanting to know more about TriUU. Please sign up at the table in the back of the room. Reflections on the sermon. Will those of you who spoke come on up here, please? We're interested to hear how you experienced this hybrid worship service and/or what you took away from the speakers. For those who are on Zoom, raise your hand to speak or type your comment in the chat box. For those here in the chairless room, please raise your hand. If there's time, and there is some time, I'll call on you. Please share your name and speak directly into the top of the microphone so we can hear you better. If you wish to be seen on the monitors and by those attending via Zoom, please stand directly in front of the pulpit. Please keep comments brief and on topic. No announcements, please.
Thank you so much, guys. You were all wonderful. But I want to comment about Helen presentation because it made me think about, I found really interesting the way that here she wove, her griefs and gratitude and gifts into her baskets, and made me think about the way that I have woven my griefs, and I never thought about that over my crafts, and I think it's really a gift to love crafts, to love art. And I consider myself a crafter more than an artist, because you are able to take all those feelings in your work and at the same time get out of the world while you are working and just focusing on that. So thank you, Helen, for bringing up that part of your work that's so touching.
Thank you, Maria. Anyone else?
Thank you very much. You're like onions. I never had any idea about all of this. This is wonderful. Thank you all very much.
Tom? Oh, okay. Joyce?
I think of Eileen, this is Joyce Mills, Eileen traveling to China so much, and those are experiences that will always be with you. And I just wish we had more time to hear more of them, because they're just really wonderful. And with Tim learning to play the ukulele, when I was in college as a junior, I lived in the sorority house, and I was practicing piano and all the sheet music. And then I would do this every afternoon after I worked in the cafeteria. And I'd come to the sorority house and practice on the piano. One afternoon, I came home, and the sheet music had disappeared.
My comment is to Tim. Tim, I'm really disappointed. I expected you to put on a Tiny Tim display of playing and singing.
Is there anyone? Oh, there's Bill.
Bill Coburn. And I just want to tell Helen that I think of you every day. Right by our door as we go out, we have our keys, everything we need to get out of the room and come back. So we think about you because of one of your products. It's really wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. And there's Glenn.
I would encourage everybody to look up the Orchestra de Paris that's you're going to be sent, because like Tim, there are sometimes, and Frank, of course, the reason he recommended this was because a piece of music can do something to you that no words can express. A personal experience I had was with Samuel Barber's Adagio for strings. If any of you know that, that's something worth looking up. It's not very long, but it just does something in you. And so I know what you were trying to express there, and the melody was beautiful on the ukulele, but I encourage everybody to hear the whole orchestration of it, and it'll probably do something to you too.
Nancy.
I just want to say that my favorite services are always those given by our members, when we get to know more about your lives. It's just so wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Andrea Coburn, and I want to thank all three of you, because even at the age I am, I have to learn from the three of you to, number one, take chances to do things outside my comfort zone, and to stick with it. And I'm having such regrets. Helen, you worked so hard to get me to complete a thing, and I gave up. And you finished it for me, which I treasure. Not because, well, anyway, but I'm good. That's my takeaway. Take a risk, go outside my comfort zone, and stick with it. I'm currently trying to relearn crocheting, so now you've recommitted me to that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I was going to say, why don't you just stay here till we end? Just have a seat. For a benediction, these words were written by the Reverend Amy Zucker Morgenstern. May all our hours together be blessed as this one has been, by open-hearted sharing, learning from one another, and making beautiful harmonies together. And may we greet everyone we encounter with the same acceptance and grateful kinship until we meet again. Blessed be. Join us for coffee and fellowship in the back of the room until 11 o'clock. There's a sign-up sheet on the table near the bookshelves to coordinate with others who like to go out for brunch. The Zoom room will stay open for 20 minutes, and thank you.